Hi, Ken.
I'm Alan.
Fucking Alan. Alan. This week, the 2Ps review Greta Gerwig's Barbie. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of 2Ps on a podcast. Gerald is here with you. And of course, my fellow P this week and every week is Nick. Nick, how you doing, brother?
Welcome to 2Gs on a Rickcast. I forgot to do it last week.
You
and now I
didn't
feel
do
bad
it last
I
week.
was trying to keep like a running thing going,
Mhm.
and now I feel bad. Ah, geez, Gerald. I really tried.
You didn't do it
I
last
tried.
week.
I failed. Maybe I'll sneak another one in here this week to balance the scales,
And
to
I
write the universe, and everything will be good.
Thought about that last week. I'm like, he didn't do that when I was editing back the video. I thought of that.
You know what? Hey, you know what? Sometimes
What?
I want to leave it to you to actually like do some of the heavy lifting.
No,
here.
don't do that. The show's not going to last very long if you do that. Let's be honest.
What's up, baby?
What's
How you
up,
doing,
man?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. Now, not to get into your personal shit here on the air, but you said you had a rough week, a long week, and I'm like thinking to myself,
Rough doesn't even describe it, man.
Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, I kind of did too, and it's like, what better time to discuss Greta Gerwig's Barbie than if you've had like kind of some turbulent shit going on in your life. So we're going to get into it tonight. We're discussing Barbie this evening. That's the review this week. And I'm excited to talk about it. The way we kick off every episode, though, of course, before we get into the actual review of the film, is we throw one big question at each other, Nick. Now, I was also telling you before we started recording, I kind of struggled a little bit with this week.
I don't hear that, audience. Not prepared.
Yeah,
that's what you're hearing, audience.
No. Hang tight. Hang tight. Not entirely true, because
you're doing this for them and you're letting them down, Gerald.
Wow. This is getting really deep early in this episode. Well, I've been thinking about it for a couple of days, and I'm just like, I mean, yeah, sure, but it's not. So it's not really necessarily a deep question. I guess it could be depending on your answer.
Okay.
But I do have one I'm going to go with. So,
okay.
Do you want to throw yours at me first, or do you want me?
I got the perfect
All
one.
right.
I got the perfect one, and it kind of came to me as soon as I walked out of the theater for this movie.
Okay.
In Barbie, and I don't think this is a spoiler or anything to say this, but in Barbie, it involves Barbie going from Barbie Land, this fictional Barbie-esque land.
Sure.
I lost
World.
where I was going with that and had no other choice. But, it goes from Barbie Land, and she ends up in the real world. So I thought to myself, Gerald, what other fictional, could be action figures, could be comic books, could be whatever, what other property or universe or whatever do you think would be cool to get this treatment of like the fictional property? It's like it's in its own utopia over here, and then that they cross over to the real world, because a lot of what we get with comic book movies and all that kind of stuff nowadays that's just the world that it is. But imagine a comic book movie wherein the comic book characters are all in comic book world, and then they come over to our world. Imagine that. Like, what? So if just take a minute to think on that, what would be a really cool fictional universe? Anything goes. Literally anything goes.
So am I part of this, or I just?
It doesn't matter. You could be an outside observer. You could be taking an intimate part of it. You could be one of the fictional characters if you really wanted to be. It could be the Gerald universe, where it's nothing but Geralds.
You would love that, wouldn't you? Let's be honest. That's your dream, right there.
You just saw that in your head, and it filled you with the kind of existential dread that Barbie is filled with in this movie. You were like, "Ooh!"
I was having much more of a crisis than Barbie.
No.
I mean, the first thing that came to mind when you started kind of phrasing the question, I kind of knew where you were going. I'm going to stick with, and it's going to be like Super Mario Brothers.
Nice.
Now, I know we kind of got that in a roundabout way with the new film. But I don't know. I just grew up on that in the 80s and like playing the video game. Mario Kart is one of my all-time faves.
I'm going to throw the red flag on this, and I'm going to disqualify this answer, because this is exactly what happened in the original Super Mario Brothers movie. They go from the real world into the Mushroom Kingdom.
It's the first thing
literally just described the plot of an actual movie, Gerald.
It's the first thing that popped in my head.
Dennis Hopper's there. He's got a big
Yeah,
tongue.
yeah, Bob Haskins.
Yoshi's chained up. Weird Goomba things. It's glorious. It's wonderful.
But I mean, if you think about the video game properties and the characters in that video game crossing over, at least how we know them now, I feel like there's so much additions that have been added over the years to that, and the lore is just like growing and growing and growing, and it's so like childlike and kind of innocent. But I mean, imagine like Bowser coming over to the real world. I mean, that would be crazy.
Yo, if he and I didn't see the new Super Mario Brothers movie yet, unfortunately. But
Oh wow,
if he wants to come over, and just sing an absolute like banger like Peaches in the real world, like I'd be
let's
all
do
about
it.
that song. Slaps so hard.
It's so good.
Man.
Jack Black's got perfect.
It's so funny.
comedic
It's so
timing
funny
with that.
reading comments about that song, and they're like, Jack Black didn't have to go so hard on this song. And I'm like, have you ever heard or seen anything Jack Black has ever done? Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did.
That's the only way he could have done it.
Yeah, he did for sure.
And it's glorious and amazing. I hope it's all peaches, 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 peaches. I hope it's all stuck in all your heads now. You're welcome.
I was gonna be super creepy and be like, Peach, Rosalina, Daisy. Let's get them all over here to the real world. You know what I'm saying?
Good night, everybody.
I mean, I'm gonna stick with that. I mean, I know the plot.
Welcome to our review of Barbie, in which they talk about the patriarchy and men being
And here I am.
boorish
Yeah.
oafs. Yeah, welcome,
Sure.
welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome,
Sure.
welcome to the show.
Well, I'm gonna stick with that answer though. I don't know. I feel like that would be kind of cool. I play Mario Kart daily, so to see that come over to the real world would be kind of crazy. And I'm thinking about it not necessarily from like movies or popular things I've seen, but just like what it would be like for me to see it. You know what I mean? It would be intense.
Yeah.
So, did you think about what you would choose for that for your own question or no?
I was thinking about it when I came out of the theater, and I was thinking about like different action figures and stuff. But like, I know we've gotten like, and we got what I didn't see it yet, or probably never will because I don't care. But like, we got another Transformers movie, the Rise of the Beasts or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What was it, like a couple months ago or something? And I thought, reimagine the Transformers franchise like this, like where the Transformers are just in this other world and they have to go. But I mean, I guess they live on Cybertron, and they have to like travel here from Cybertron as it's like dying and exploding or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like there's like, think about it. Like
It
you
would be
could do
crazy.
like action figure wise, you could do like G.I. Joe or something like that. Like everybody could go to like a G.I. Joe universe that's actually good.
Well, let me ask you my question then, because this is a perfect segue.
Ooh, okay.
Now, a little caveat. My wife came up with the question for you. Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, Gerald can't even
But,
be bothered. Outsourcing. He's outsourcing his half of the work of the show.
but I added
Did she
to
see
it.
Barbie for you too?
Did what?
She saw Barbie. She saw Barbie for you. Okay.
No. Yeah, she wrote the review that I'm going to be going over tonight. I'm going to read her script. No, but I added to it. So my question is, it's kind of a two-parter, but to start with, your favorite childhood toy, right? But what is a childhood toy that you hold dear that you wish you could still play with today, or if you were given the chance, you would play with it on, a regular basis today as an adult?
My favorite childhood toy was by far Georgie, who was my Cabbage Patch doll. He was bald. His head was falling off by the time he got like so old and ragged and beaten up.
Fucking Georgie.
But to answer the second part of that question, none. I wouldn't
What?
play with any of the toys I played with as a kid. I don't play with toys anymore, Gerald.
Why?
I'm sorry.
But I know. I'm
don't.
not saying you do. I'm saying if you could, like, oh, I'm going to play with this once a week. Like,
I've graduated now to where, like yourself, I just have toys decorating my office. The
Sure.
toys graduate to a stationary kind of thing when you become an adult.
Well, for me.
Don't make me get Uncle Rico back out.
I know. We're bringing him out. For me, it's Hot Wheels. That's it. Matchbox cars, Hot Wheels cars. Like, dude, if I had the time to sit down and play with those, like weekly, let's just say, I'm all about it. I don't know. I was just always doing like the little NASCAR races with my Hot Wheels, and I have two young boys now who would probably dig, like, we have racetracks and stuff here, like Matchbox, tracks that we've gotten and stuff over the course of them being born. And I don't know, that would be it for me. I mean, I'm not gonna.
Okay.
I mean, I get what you're saying, like, playing with toys or whatever, but It's just like if you
Next
wish you
time,
could,
next time you roll in here for live stream for the Cure, we're just gonna have like an extra day where like me, you, and Dan just like play together.
We have a live stream of us playing with
Like
toys.
play with our toys, like
Yeah.
whatever those toys are. Can't be like video games, can't
No.
be anything like that. It's gotta be toy. Dan, I want you to bring your My Little Pony action figures or whatever you got.
Please. I'm all about it. I'm all about seeing Dan play with My Little Ponies. We'd probably raise a lot of money doing that. Bring out Rainbow Dash,
Dan?
get Dan down there. It'd be good. All right.
Only Dan, for every My Little Pony action figure you bring, that's another super spicy chicken wing Gerald has to eat.
Oh, God. I'm still feeling the effects of the last ones.
I bet you are.
All right.
I still got the sauce in the fridge. I can get it out.
Oh, God. Please don't. I can smell it from here. I kind of was wondering what that was. All right. We're going to get into our review of Barbie, the new Greta Gerwig film. And to start the episode every week, you got your score there.
Nope. I don't got it. Nope.
So before we do the review, guys, we always give you our individual scores out of 10. We do not know what each other have graded the film. We're finding out right now in real time, and then we'll kind of discuss what those scores were. Here we go. Ready, set, go.
9 out of 10, baby. Get out of
Out
here.
of 10.
What is wrong with you?
8
What is wrong with you? No. Nope.
out of 10.
Do over.
That's a
Do it again.
good score, by the way.
Do it again. Do it again. Start again. Start over.
8 out of 10 from me. 9 out of 10 from Nick, which actually...
No, this is the same score from last week. Do you need to do the math again?
I was going to say that. Thank God we had the episode last week. I know that that's an 8.5 cumulative now because we've been through this. I didn't even have to bring a calculator for this week.
Did you write up like a little decimal conversion chart for
I
like
did.
whatever combination of reviews we might have?
I was like, oh, God, what if he throws me a different number than 9 to this week? What am I going to do?
I thought about it. I should have.
All right, so 8 out of 10 for me, 9 out of 10 for Nicholas. Greta Gerwig's Barbie. Obviously, I'm not going to read the synopsis. I'm not going to ask you to do it. This is a movie that's been super, super hyped for actually several years, back when even Amy Schumer was signed on to play the role of Barbie. But definitely the last year or so, it's been promoted and hyped, everywhere. And everyone knows it's essentially a movie based on the popular toy from Mattel that we know, one of the most famous toys in pop culture, and it's kind of centered around her existential kind of realization of her connection to the real world. So we have the Barbie world, which is essentially like a kind of a Toy Story type deal, where all the toys kind of live there and they, interact with each other, but they're just toys. Like, they don't have to deal with the pressures of humanity or whatever. And then Barbie and Ken eventually cross over into our world, and they kind of learn the differences between the two. And it kind of turns into the themes of the movie from there, which we'll discuss tonight. So you obviously are a big, big fan of it. I am as well. I have a few things that we'll get into when we get into the spoiler discussion of the movie. But generally, up top, give us why you love this movie so much, Nick.
So first of all, this leans hard into the Barbie thing, okay? And when I say it leans hard into the Barbie thing, and I mean, okay, so let's get this out front. We're fully recommending this movie. I don't think, it depends on what you constitute as a spoiler for this movie, which it's not like there's any twists and turns that you don't expect to take place in this movie or anything like that. But I think we have to talk about certain aspects of the plot to really actually have a discussion about it. So full spoilers from here on out.
Let's just do it. Yeah, let's do it. So going forward, spoilers.
I really, really think it leans super, super hard into the Barbie thing. And what I mean by that is Margot Robbie's character is literally like the stereotypical classical Barbie doll. She lives in what is essentially like a Barbie play set or Barbie playhouse. Like, she tips up a glass with no liquid in it and like has all these different doll things. And like, basically it's like she's being picked up and played with by a little girl or whatever the case may be. I actually really, really love that the movie actually leans really hard into that from the beginning. So it makes no qualms about the fact that these are just literally dolls, as if it's like, like little girls or little boys or whomever playing with these dolls and having them interact. I think that was a wildly amazing decision to take this on, because let's be realistic here. You could have just made a Barbie movie where Barbie is just, I don't know, like a character in the real world somehow. Like, I don't know how contextualize that or whatever, but you could have made this movie any number of different ways. But I really, really think just framing this from the get go as this is very clearly a doll living in a like dollhouse, like this idyllic life, this idyllic world. Perfect choice.
I agree. I mean, like you said, spoilers going forward, guys, for Barbie if you haven't seen it, but kind of like some overlying umbrella thoughts I have. Like, I love how Gerwig, which by the way, I mean, Greta Gerwig is got to be one of the best alive making movies right now. And she's doing so many different films like Lady Bird, Little Women, Barbie. Like, they're all kind of like not even close to being in the same wheelhouse. They're all a little bit different. And we'll talk about Gerwig a lot tonight and her style of filmmaking. But I love how to speak to what you just added, or to add to what you just said, like she kind of used a lot of like natural, like practical backdrops and stuff, and like the set
Mm-hmm.
design was so immaculate, where it was like a Barbie dream house kind of set up in a little girl's room brought to life.
Yep.
And I really love the attention to detail with the colors, and you know how in the Wizard of Oz they had like the backdrops that were clearly just like a giant, wall or
Right.
whatever, and
Right.
it was
Right. Right.
made to
Yeah.
look like, and they did a lot of that in Barbie, obviously intentionally, to kind of play homage to that and kind of give that image of like, this isn't real. This is like a
Yep.
playset. So I really loved a lot of the decisions that were made and a lot of the choices that were made in the movie. The performances, and we'll talk about those now if you want, but I thought the cast as a whole was phenomenal. But I mean, Ryan Gosling was a standout for me. I'm just going to go ahead and say it now. And Michael Cera was a little bit of a bit part, but whenever he was on screen in this movie, I was literally like ear to ear, like grinning. I mean, this guy is so just like charismatic and just like foolish, and I mean just him in general, but in this movie specifically as Alan, he was a great kind of breath of fresh air whenever he showed up in the movie, and he was kind of the unsung hero of the movie too, to be honest. We don't.
Perfectly cast.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Margot Robbie is Barbie. I mean, forget it, dude. I mean, who else are?
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolute perfect casting. Helen Mirren even has a really cool joke where the fourth wall's broken, where she's like, because Margot Robbie's talking about how she doesn't feel pretty and stuff, and then Helen Mirren comes in as the narrator, and she's like, "We realize casting Margot Robbie as this character doesn't make this believable at all," or whatever she says, because she's
Yeah.
obviously like perfect, and she is Barbie essentially in real life. So I, I
Which leans really hard into how kind of self-aware this movie is. Like it really, really definitely approaches this in that perspective that it's very, very aware of the type of movie it wants to be. And I think tonally, I think that Gerwig is going for a very specific tone in this film, and I think she knocks it out of the park. Going for like it's this extremely surreal world, obviously Barbie land, where it's like, I mean, literally like the water's plastic, the sand is like this pink plastic, like
mhm.
whatever. It's like you said, all the sets are just like, literally it's literally just a child's play set. So I think tonally, I think Gerwig is going for this kind of this whimsical kind of satirical tone. And I mean, let's like dial it even further back to the beginning with the I mean, just how good's the homage to Kubrick in the opening? How good
Oh
is
yeah,
that? How
no, it's
good is that
great.
homage in the opening?
It's
I
great.
need Dan to see Barbie, and Dan's editing this and getting spoiled by it because he hasn't seen it yet. I need Dan to see the first like 5 minutes of Barbie because he hates Kubrick. So I just need Dan to see just that part
Yeah, no, that
because
was
it's
great.
it's so good. It's so good. I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful homage to Kubrick in that way. I really, really loved it. But yeah, I think tonally this movie knows exactly what it's going for. It wants to present this kind of hyper surreal, almost childlike, innocent, naive kind of world. Because then when you juxtapose that, when they finally get to the real world, when you get these characters interacting with real people who have real problems, who have real like emotional issues and things like that, it's a huge, amazing contrast, and I really, really love that.
Well, I'm not saying I disagree with you, but I wanted to ask you a little bit. I felt, and maybe this is just my interpretation, but I felt like there was like kind of shifts in tone throughout the movie where it kind of not confuse me, but it kind of took me in different directions. Like there would be, portions of the film that were kind of like almost slapsticky, like with the Will Ferrell stuff, for example, in the Mattel headquarters or whatever. And then there would be other like really kind of existential, like I got emotional in a couple scenes that, I mean, that's great. I'm glad I did, but I just saying it kind of felt like maybe out of left field a little bit. There's the one scene where Barbie's in the real world and she's sitting on a park bench at like a bus stop or whatever, and she sees this elderly lady sitting down across from her on the park bench,
Mm-hmm.
and the elderly lady has no. We don't see her again in the movie. Like she has no, she doesn't have anything to do with the actual plot of the film. She just happens to be there when Barbie's there, and Barbie
Mm-hmm.
looks over at her and says, "You're beautiful." And the old lady says, "I know." And it's, and that's when Barbie ends up shedding her single tear, Margot Robbie, to tremendous effect. But
Yeah, yeah.
what I thought was really cool was that those types of feelings that I had from this movie was like Barbie's here on Earth, if you will, or in the real world, and she's seeing these things that are completely foreign to her, completely different, like nothing she's ever seen, that would not necessarily be seen as quote unquote the definition of beauty if a random person were to look it up, and she sees it as beautiful. And that really kind of struck a chord with me emotionally, that we kind of need to take ourselves back out of what we're used to and kind of look around us and see what what we have there. But you see what I'm saying? Like I felt like the movie, and I love Gerwig, but you're saying that she was kind of sure-handed with the tone, and maybe it was intentional, but I felt like the tone was kind of up and down a little bit. Like there would be 30 minutes where I was laughing my ass off, and the next 30 minutes I'm like crying. So I don't know. Is that just me, or I'm asking you like your interpretation of the tone setting there?
I mean, I really love the emotional journey that this film takes you on because it's trying to. I mean, and number one, like, I mean, for Mattel to have given them, they had to have given Gerwig like carte blanche,
Hmm.
really, to do whatever they wanted with this property, and it's pretty critical of like
It is.
Barbie's, like the image that Barbie has kind of painted for the world, because it's kind of painted like this image that little girls have to live up to for so long, like this image of like, thinness and tall, and like all these different physical attributes that like a little girl is supposed to live up to, or whatever. Like for Mattel to have kind of basically just let Gerwig be like, no, this is like there's that one scene where like Barbie reaches, like she's trying to find the little girl who's playing with her, at least so she thinks. She's trying to find that little girl to kind of try to figure out like what's happened. And as far as Barbie's concerned, in Barbie Land, they think that the world's like this amazing utopia where they've made women all amazingly strong, and like all of them have striven to be like all these amazing incredible things, and all these things. And then she just kind of gets read the riot act by the little girl of like, no, you suck.
Right.
Like you've literally made life horrible for
Right.
us forever because it's impossible to live up to the standard that you present. And I think like there's a lot of different things in this movie, like, and like I've been struggling a lot, and like this past week and like this year, like I've had a lot of rough times this year,
Hmm.
and I think that one of the big things about this movie is like how just like the quietest victories. I mean, America Ferrera's character says it like toward the end of the movie about like, what about a Barbie that's just like, just like a normal person who's like, I picked out like the right sweater, and that's great for me, like that's okay for me,
Right.
like that's like the perfect day for me, like I've been struggling so much in my own life, like I have been just trying to find any little kind of quiet thing or anything like that to celebrate. So I love that it's Gerwig kind of going after that whole idyllic, like really the idyllic idea that Barbie once represented, like
Hmm.
that Barbie was supposed to be like this perfect ideal of beauty and of even like achievement, or anything like that. And I mean I love that the film has its moments of levity, and I love that the film takes you on those emotional journeys as well. I think it's all part of the same ride.
Hmm.
I really love that it's all part of the same ride. It's swinging you from, and really trying to put you in Barbie's high heels, as it were,
Hmm.
to understand like a character who has never experienced any of these kinds of emotions before, to really opening her eyes to being able to feel all these things and see all these things and experience all these things for the first time. Like that scene on the bus bench, like the scene with the old woman on the bus bench, like there's such a quiet power in that scene. Like just telling people, and like, like my brand, like Nikolai's Kitchen, and like something that I focused on like the past few years of my life is like positivity, positive energy. There's so much power in just saying something good, or just doing some quiet little thing to make somebody else's day better in some way.
Hmm.
I think that's the real power of this movie is like just taking that little quiet power, and just like, man, like, you know what, like a lot of days, a lot of us are just trying to survive out
Right.
here, and like a lot of days aren't going to be like these perfect, amazing, incredible days. We're not going to be like the most beautiful. We're not going to feel the most beautiful. We're not going to feel the most incredible. And for me, like the film really is a way of reassuring that it's okay to just be that. Like it's okay to have bad days, and it's okay to just celebrate the mundane. Celebrate, like you said, like celebrate this idea, like just tell this old woman who nobody, in a cynical way, nobody would look at and say, oh, you're beautiful or whatever,
Hmm.
and to instead treat that as a genuine moment, because all
Sure.
people in some way or another are or can be beautiful.
Sure.
I love that about this movie, and that was like really the thing that really, really moved me about this movie. Like I was in tears by the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, I was wrecked, man. Like I
Yeah.
was really, really wrecked.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you because the movie really does go to those places where it's existential, and it's just like, kind of like where we fit in, you could say, the universe, but I mean, even
Who am I?
yeah, even more drilled down, like where do I
Yeah.
fit in my family or in my community, or I mean, you could kind of look at it from different directions, but it
Yeah.
really does kind of present those questions to you through this character of Barbie and the people that she's around. But let's get a little bit into. We'll talk about the performances too, but real quick. So this is going to be like kind of a quick summary, but basically they go to the real world. Barbie and Ken. Ken hitches a ride with her because he wants to be supportive. So they're there, kind of trying to figure things out and trying to get to Mattel. And Ken kind of has a turn, and he was kind of the Ken that we know from the Barbie toy line, right? Like he was there to be an accessory to the main act.
He's and Ken. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
he's
and
and
Ken.
Ken, right?
Yeah.
So we get to, and that's what goes to the real world with her, fully supporting her, major crush, wants nothing in the world, in the Barbie world, more than to have her affection, be by her side. And Ryan Gosling absolutely kills it in that role and really sells it. So they get to the real world, and Ken starts to kind of learn how things really are in America. And I'm putting it that way because that's kind of the way it is, at least historically. Things are changing, but historically. And there's really fucking hilarious montage where it has a bunch of pictures of Sylvester Stallone, and like he's picturing,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
like what a man is supposed to be. And this montage, she kind of comes to the realization, like, here in America or in the real world, dudes are in charge. I'm a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I taking a back seat to my lady if I'm a guy and this is the way it's going on in the real world? So he goes
Mm-hmm.
back to Barbie Land, and essentially the men, if you will, kind of
The
take
Kens.
the Kens kind of take over.
Yep.
I did not see that coming. Nothing in the trailers or anything would have led me to believe that it was going to be a Kens versus Barbies kind of scenario when we got back to the third act of this film. How did that
Mm-hmm.
sit with you? Did you see that coming? Was that like interesting turn to you, or what's your thoughts on that?
I really, really loved it. And I can't take credit for this because I found it somewhere on Twitter, but I saw someone point out that Ken is basically a supporting female character in like any other movie literally ever.
Mm,
I mean, he's basically just like you think about like how many movies you've seen over the course of your life where there's just like a female character who's just
yeah,
there to pretty to look at. And like, I mean, you think about him in this movie, like he's just always basically like shirts open, sculpted abs.
right.
Like we're always just kind of like looking in on him. Like I said, I can't take credit for that. I saw that somewhere on Twitter that someone pointed that out. but like
I could see that.
I really loved that because on one hand, like they don't exist, and I mean, we could talk about like the whole patriarchy aspect of the film as well. But I really think that these characters don't have any agency, and I think that what Gerwig is doing is taking these characters that are just, it's like you said, they're accessories. It's and Ken. He doesn't have an identity of his own. He doesn't have an
Right.
identity of his own outside of Barbie. And like you really think about the point that this film is trying to make in terms of female characters in film, like over the course of the history of film, how many female characters are literally and this character? They only exist in service to the male character, in service to the male lead. I love that flips it on its head and it criticizes that, and it points out like how sad that is, and how like we really need to have strong female characters who aren't just ancillary to the male lead or whatever. So I really loved that. And what this movie's trying to say, and what this movie's trying to point out, and I've already seen the reviews. I'm sure you've seen people online that have already been doing this too, where they're calling it anti-male and
Right.
all these different things. And like, I'm sorry, but if you subscribe to the type of patriarchy that this film is criticizing, aka that women should be shoved into subservient roles and just be
Mhm.
nothing of service tools for men, basically, like they go back to Barbie Land, and that's literally what it is. They have taken all of the Barbies once Ken gets back there, and they've relegated them all to service roles. They're all like bringing them drinks and like
Right.
just doing nothing
Hmm.
but serving them.
Right. That's
I'm sorry, but this is not the 50s anymore. Like the
mhm.
world has moved on, and like you need to get on board. Like I'm sorry if you're somebody that still prescribes to this kind of mindset, cuz it's baffling to
Yeah, I
me
think
that people still
I
do.
think a major glitch there with the proportion of the masculine society that you're talking about, because I've seen a lot of that like kind of blowback on it as well, is that you see movies and you see popular media and you listen to songs and all that stuff. You do it through a lens, right? So
Yep.
we're looking at it through a male lens. I mean, you and I mean, are straight males. So we're looking at it through really all that we know. I mean, we're not women.
Yep.
We've never been women. So we're not going to be able to see it from a woman's point of view. Now, can we be sympathetic to it, and can we borrow from the experiences of the women in our lives that are close to us, our mothers, our wives, our daughters, whatever? Then that's the hope, right? So then you have this portion of the population that's not willing to do that. They're looking at it through their lens, which that part I get, because at the end, in the last act of this film, the Kens in Barbie Land essentially end up kind of where they started. They kind of end up being accessories, and they kind of end up not really having any forward motion in the film. So that part I get, but then it's like, what is this movie really about? It's not about the Ken story. It's about kind of female empowerment,
Yep.
but also it's about, like I said earlier, just kind of knowing your place in society and kind of figuring that out. And that really doesn't
Yep.
matter what sex you are. Now, in this movie, it's represented by Barbies and predominantly females, but that's not why that's the message of this movie. Do you know what I mean? So I I wanted to kind of piggyback on what you said there, because I feel like it's unfortunate that these like alpha males or whatever you want to call them are like, let's boycott Barbie because it hates men. It doesn't hate men, but
Which
this
your boycott didn't work. The
it
the
did not
opening
work.
receipts. I think this
It
is the biggest
absolutely
opening weekend ever for a female director.
yes, it
So big ups to
absolutely
Gerwig
did
for
not
that.
work.
Yeah.
But it's like crazy because, and I think you actually put something on Twitter after you saw it about the male's fragile ego, and
Oh yeah, this movie's coming for your male fragility.
that's
If
what you
if
said.
if you're
Yeah.
someone who can't who if you're someone who can't abide the idea of strong women who
Hmm.
have their own place in society, who have their own life, their own
Their
goals,
own
their
voice.
own dreams, their own desires outside of a man. If you're somebody who can't handle that, and you think that women should only be relegated to how they can serve you, then yeah, this movie's coming for you. This movie is literally coming straight at you,
Right.
because that's an outmoded, outdated, you know, thing of society that the world, that's just not the world that we live in anymore. And I'm glad that we live in this world. I love people to have agency. I want, like, I struggle so much, and I don't know if you can attest to this, G, but I struggle so much to figure out who the heck I am
Mhm.
most of the time, to figure out like my own things in life. Like I struggle so much, literally all the
Yep.
time. Like whenever I'm able to find like that little bit of agency, like and like you said, we're just two straight white dudes reviewing this movie. I can't even begin to imagine how difficult it has been for women to go through the things that they've had to go through. I really can't.
Right.
But I mean, all I can do is just, I want everyone to have their own agency, and everyone to just be the person that they want to be. No one should be relegated to just serving somebody else, unless that's what they want to do or
Sure.
something. But to be relegated to that because society says you have to, like, no, that's terrible. That's a horrible, ridiculous, outmoded way of living. And if you ever, like, I mean, tell my sister that, because she's a Marine. She'll shut you straight.
Yeah. I mean,
If you want to try to tell a woman how to live their life, tell my sister that, and she'll set you
and
straight.
I agree, and I think that, and I think what's kind of unfortunate is the closed mindedness when it comes to a film like Barbie,
It really
because
is.
if you could go into a movie like this with an open mind, I think Greta Gerwig and everybody involved is trying to open your mind, but do it in a fun way, not like a preachy way. Like, this is a very fun movie. It's, well intentioned, and it's uplifting. And I think that, you know, it's obvious to me. I feel like it's obvious to me. And I mean, you can comment if you disagree, but I think it's obvious that, women in general, but, those that are mothers, that have kids, would even get more of a connection to this film, because of some of
Yep.
the themes in the movie, and especially America Ferrera's character in the real world, and, the monologue she gives that was to die for. I mean, nobody's really mentioning her name in different circles I follow for award season and stuff, but America Ferrera is fucking phenomenal in this. I mean, she is really,
Yeah.
really good in this,
Yeah. She's
in
fantastic.
a supporting role.
Yeah.
Um, let's get into the performances a little bit. So we're just talking about her. She was a standout for me. Ryan Gosling, dude. I mean, this guy.
Gosling. I mean,
Uh,
Gosling. The thing about Gosling is, like, we were just talking about Jack Black, like, straight up going for it with Peaches in that Mario movie.
yeah,
Gosling just straight goes for it in this movie. He 100% leans into every single thing about this movie.
you know,
That's I mean, and it's because the performances of this movie, it's because the actors in this movie are really going at this and taking it, like, as seriously as they are,
right.
but with their tongue firmly planted in their cheek when it needs to be.
Mm.
John Cena shows up as a mermaid,
Yeah,
merkin, I guess. Absolutely loved that. That was absolutely
yeah, that
amazing.
was great.
And I mean, how great Kate McKinnon as Weird
She's
Barbie. I
good.
mean,
Yeah,
how good is Kate McKinnon, dude? Like,
yeah. And what I
I mean,
was,
all the performances of this movie understand the assignment. Every single one of them understands the movie they're trying to be part of, and like I said, just it's meant to be this surreal, whimsical tone, but it's also meant to kind of make you have a little bit of an existential think, like
right,
like figure out what is, because Barbie's trying to find her place in the world in this movie. What is your place in the world? Who are
exactly.
you? Like, what is your life? Like, where is your agency?
You
You
know,
know, and how can you as a person, like, help others achieve that agency? How can you as a person help other people, like, achieve some sense of self?
right.
And, like, awaken that in them. Like, that's what kind of Ken's arc, like, reaching the end of the movie, that's kind of because he doesn't have an identity outside of and Ken. And, like, dude, what if they don't perform I'm Just Ken at the Oscars? I'm gonna riot,
It
dude.
better get nominated.
I'm gonna
'Cause
riot.
then
I don't
they'll
care
have.
if it gets nominated or
Well,
not, but
if
they
it
better
gets,
perform it at the
well, if
Oscars.
it gets nominated,
Better
they have to
perform it.
perform it. So they perform the five
Well,
nominees. So I hope it does.
well,
But yeah,
I mean, this is the Oscars. You never know. They're gonna take something else away like they do every other
that
year.
was so good. And and speaking to the kind of shifts in tone that we talked about earlier, there'll be times in this movie where it's like you're going along, and then it'll literally be a musical, and there'll be like a
Yep.
choreographed number. You mentioned I'm Just Ken, but there was a couple others. I
When
loved it.
I love, like, there's two opening musical numbers. Like, there's one at the beginning of the movie where it's literally singing along as Barbie's doing all the actions in the song, and then when Barbie has that just kind of offhanded quip, "Hey, do you guys ever think about dying?" and like everything, and then she wakes up the next day, and then she has like the really like off day for
Right,
her.
right.
The song is once again following along with her every move. It's really whimsical. It's really, really
Yeah,
great. I really, really love
I
that.
agree.
And I think, like, to touch back on the tonal shifts that this movie takes, like you were talking about, I think that Gerwig does it intentionally. I think it's meant, because I think those emotional moments that the movie hits, I think they're really meant to hit hard.
Hmm.
And they do hit really,
They
really
do.
hard. It's like when America Ferrera like goes on that rant and like dude, like, I mean, think about you, like, you know, we're the people that we are, you know, but like, could you imagine having to go through your life living like that,
Hmm.
having to deal with all those different kind of minutia? And it's not to say, like, I mean, this is not our place to, you know, sit here and say but men, you know, in this space, but like everybody, that's life for everybody. Everybody's got like just an absolute just tidal wave of stuff coming at them, like literally at all times. So just like, I really, really think that just like it's okay to just exist, and it's okay to just not have to strive for greatness sometimes, and it's okay to just
Hmm.
be quiet or live a quiet life, and all those different kinds of things. I mean, I really just went on like a roller coaster ride emotionally with this movie. Like I said, I was really, really emotional several times.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, there's definitely the female empowerment aspect, and there's the you know, outdated patriarchal model that this movie criticizes and whatnot. But like I said, I mean,
That's
could you
crazy.
imagine living like that?
It's
I
crazy.
can't. And that's where like this movie wants people, like, have empathy for people.
Exactly.
And that I think is one of the main things too, is just having empathy for people, having empathy for the things that people struggle with. Sometimes it's a real struggle to wake up in the morning and just pick out the right freaking shirt
I know.
and feel comfortable in your own skin, and not feel like you just want to jump out of your skin and scream, or feel like you have this impossible standard to live up to.
Hmm.
You know, like, I have to deal with stuff like that, like, all the time. Like I said, I have not had a good year, man. I've had like a really, really rough year. Like, I've had a really rough time of things, with different times, with questioning like all these different things,
Hmm.
you know. And I mean, I that's kind of the place that this movie took me to. Is it really connected to like those parts of me that wants me to be okay with just, you know, celebrating those small victories and stuff, you
Which I'll
know?
just say, and I appreciate you sharing that stuff, but I mean, I'll just say that's fucking crazy that that is being elicited from a Barbie movie. Like, think about that. Like, a movie essentially based on a child's toy from, I think, like the 50s initially. And we have all these different emotions kind of going through us, definitely when we're watching it. But as we're sitting here reflecting on it, like, it's almost like it feels like the archetype of like an SNL skit, because it's like, how could, right? Because I mean, it's like, how could a movie based on a Barbie doll bring forth, but it does. And I think that really is a testament to Gerwig's filmmaking. I mean, you know, Little
Yeah, it
Women, for
really is.
example, is a story that I've heard 100 times, and seeing Gerwig's interpretation of that movie took me on emotional rides that I'm like, I know what's going to happen, but I'm still emotional from the way that she's shooting the film, and the way that, you know, she's diving into these different character strengths. And so she does that again here.
Such a phenomenal movie that is.
Yeah,
Just
I know, it really was. It was definitely easily one of the best of that year. I can't believe she didn't get
oh,
her
easily.
nomination for that, but
Easily.
we'll see what happens with Barbie. But you know what I was going to say about Ryan Gosling when we first started that last segment was, to him, you know what? And I don't know that this was necessarily his intention, and maybe this is me, but I literally saw him in this movie as if a Ken doll came to life. Like, I literally, like, he absolutely nailed the kind of persona and speech, and, you know, kind of tomfoolery, and just like kind of dumb in a lot of respects. And I don't know, I just kind of feel like that's what the Ken doll would be in real life, you know. And I mentioned Toy Story before, and there's definitely elements of that in there. I saw a little bit of Truman Show in this. Did you get those vibes or no? Jim Carrey, Truman Show. kind of
Yeah,
this
I guess
kind
I can
of
see that now that you mention it.
kind of a little bit where they're kind of quote unquote being played with in their other world, and the real world's over
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I can see that, I
We
guess.
we don't get as much of closure in Truman Show as we got in Barbie, but I kind of saw some parallels there.
Yeah.
So we talked about the performances. Gosling was a standout for me. Bit parts I love from Michael Cera. America Ferrera was great. Margot Robbie. Uh, I'll ask you real quick. I'll put it on the spot. Margot Robbie, one of the best working today.
Easily.
Would you put her in one?
Hands down.
Would you put her in one of the best actresses of all time?
Modern, certainly.
I'm going to say of all time.
All time,
I'm going to say of all time.
all time is a bigger discussion. But I mean, you think about doing films like what was the Fox News flick that
Bombshell.
she did with
Bombshell.
Bombshell? Yeah, I mean, how good's that movie?
I, Tonya.
How good is
Yeah.
she in that movie? Yeah, I Tonya. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, she's
Babylon.
utterly incredible.
Let's go Babylon High. Rise us up.
And she has so much range.
Yeah, she really does.
And she's one of the most incredible actors working today. And I mean, yeah, I think an all-time discussion is like too big for me to try to think of.
I know it is, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, she might be, because I don't know that she's done anything subpar. I mean, I got to be honest with you. I mean, and I'm not talking about her performances necessarily, even
I mean,
because
she's
they're
even
all
a
good.
standout. She's even a standout in, I mean, like the original Suicide Squad in 2016. I mean,
Birds of
not
Prey,
a good
yeah.
movie by any stretch of the imagination, but she as Harley Quinn is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Easily, like probably the best part of those movies.
Yeah, I think she's one of the best, and I think Gosling is, one of the best actors as well. And we've already
Gosling has always had such incredible range. I mean, he's been like the heartthrob, but he also plays like the action pieces. He plays the funny stuff think about films like The Nice Guys.
Nice Guys. Yeah.
I mean, like there's this he has so much and then he does weird quirky stuff like Lars and the Real Girl. I mean, his career has gone everywhere.
Yeah.
Like he's done literally everything and anything under the sun. It's been a crazy ride with him.
Yeah, two actors in these two lead roles in this movie that I literally can't even give you another name that should play these roles. I mean, they absolutely were born to do them, and they slayed it. Do you think we're going to get a sequel based on the success of this? What do you think? And if we do, what would you like to see?
My thing is where does a sequel? What does a sequel say?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of this film is about finding agency and finding your place in the world and figuring out who you are. Where does this go in terms of, like, I don't know, Barbie left at the end of the movie to come to the real world and just basically live in the real world. Like, she had outgrown Barbie Land. Like, she wasn't able to stay there anymore because she's got work to do in the real world now. She wants to help make the real world a better place and things like that, which is fantastic. Where does a sequel go, though?
Let's call it just Ken. Let's make it a Ken-centric story. And let's have Greta Gerwig write it and Baumbach direct it. What do you think?
But where does it go, though? I'm on board.
I
love Gerwig. I love Baumbach. I love Gosling. I'm all on board for that. But where does that go?
I don't know. But
because he already went on the journey in this movie of he needs his own agency too.
I know.
He needs to become his own character too, and not just an accessory to Barbie.
I don't know, but I think with the success of this film, I mean, we're only 3 days in or whatever, and it's like 170 million or something crazy. I mean, and then imagine all the toys they're going to sell from this and the Barbie, merch. I mean, they're going to probably end up doing a sequel. Now, I hope Gerwig stays with the story and kind of like continues her vision.
If she has another story to tell, if she has more to say in this universe, then I'm all for it. If not, if you don't get Gerwig involved in it, I don't think I'm on board without Gerwig.
Yeah, then it's tough.
I don't think I'm on it without Gerwig.
It's tough.
Honestly.
It would be a tough sell for me too.
Because so much of this movie is Gerwig wanting to say this to the audience. That's what so much of this movie is.
Yeah, it'd be a tough sell for me too.
That's what I really love so much about this is like I said, it's so much of Gerwig, and think about, like, you mentioned films like Little Women, like think about how good Gerwig is at crafting characters. And I know this is a Barbie movie, but think about how really well crafted these characters are.
Yeah, I agree.
Do we get that with another
I
director?
don't know. I don't.
You know, do we get that with somebody else? Like, I mean, Gerwig's got the caliber. Like she can do humor, she can do all that stuff, but she also brings that dramatic edge to this and like that kind of depth to this that I think this story needed.
I agree.
I think you could have very easily made this a very shallow, very surface level, very bland, boring, silly kind of movie that had no deeper thematic heft to it. And I think that's 100% Gerwig.
Hmm.
That's all Gerwig in the script and in the direction. So like I said, I don't know where. I'm struggling so much to even think of where you would take, and it's not that I even haven't thought about it before you asked me that question, but where do you take that sequel?
Yeah.
Where does that sequel even go? You know, do you maybe take it back to my big question, G? Maybe there's other toy universes, and they're coming to life and crossing over with the real world too.
And Barbie has to
And then,
save. Yeah.
Barbie has to
Yeah.
save. I don't know. You bring in like I said, the GI Joe universe or something or whatever.
Hey, Cena could come
I don't
back.
know.
John Cena could come
I
back.
don't
That'd
know.
be great.
Get Cena. Put
Soldier.
Cena in everything. I love Cena.
I do too. He's hilarious.
Put him in everything.
All right. So, any last thoughts you want to say on Barbie that we didn't cover? Any favorite scenes or performances or anything we didn't talk about, Nicholas? Or you good there before we get to our fan feedback?
I mean, I think I love the musical numbers. Can't wait. I'm wearing the countdown shirt right now. I can't wait to hear Paul complain about the musical numbers in this movie because you know he's going to.
Yeah, of course.
I love them though. I really think that they really kind of are an accent mark on the tone that Gerwig's going for in this movie. She wants that whimsy. She wants that lightness until she doesn't, until she wants to wallop you with the emotional beats. And that's what I love so much about it. So no, not really anything else about it. I loved it from start to finish. I cried a lot for a almost 43-year-old man in a Barbie movie.
Yep.
And I'm not sad about it. Like I really, really loved this movie. And we talked about this with Past Lives too, but films that get these high ratings, they're movies that stay with you when you leave the cinema. They're movies that you keep thinking about when you leave the cinema. And a lot of what I think about when I think about this movie is, what is my place? You know, what's my agency? How am I going to celebrate, you know, the little moments of beauty, the little things of beauty that I see in the world every day, like a beautiful woman sitting on a bus bench.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Gerwig didn't have to leave it in. And I read something on Twitter, like somebody did an interview with her and asked her about that scene. Like, why did you leave it in here? And she had to fight to keep it in the movie.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Producers wanted to cut it. They wanted to cut it out of the movie, and Gerwig's like, "This is the whole point of the movie."
Right.
It's like these beautiful little moments. Like, yeah, like it doesn't mean anything to the plot necessarily of Barbie trying to go back to Barbie Land or what. No, of course it doesn't. But that's the whole point of this movie, is like these beautiful, beautiful little things. Taking the time to celebrate the beautiful little things in life every day.
Yeah.
The everyday victories, the everyday wins. Finding just everything has sucked and everything has been terrible, and you've had a bad week, you've had a bad month, whatever it is, but you just managed to comb your hair right that day or put on a nice shirt, and you feel like you look good in the morning, and sometimes that's enough.
Well, you know? I agree. And Barbie and Ken, when they come to the real world, to me it's kind of like aliens coming to Earth. I mean, they don't know what the hell, like they have no idea.
They have no idea. Which was all. I mean, that was very, but the film doesn't have like a super long runtime or anything like that, so it's got to kind of get you in, like get them integrated with like the real world fast. So it throws a lot of like they're getting catcalled at a construction site and somebody comes up and just smacks her butt and all these different things. So I mean, it really has to kind of throw that different stuff in there. And I mean, think of Barbie and Ken didn't even touch like some of the worst stuff that's going on in the world.
I know.
In the real world, you know.
Yeah,
like
they kept it
wars
pretty.
and all these other different things. Like, ugh.
Exactly.
Yeah, they didn't even touch some of that stuff.
So obviously a high recommend from the 2Ps, an 8.5 cumulative score on Barbie. Go see it. It's a fun time. Nick, real quick, like maybe like a 1-minute response. Do you think this movie is okay for kids? It's rated PG-13, just so everyone knows. I'm going to let my son see it now that I've seen it. He's 9. I think it's okay, like 8 or 9 or 10 or more.
So my fiance Rebecca, you've met Rebecca. Her sister has a daughter who is 6, and she reached out to me and asked, like, what do you think? Is this okay for? Would this be okay for like a 6-year-old to see? Now it doesn't have like any violence. Like it has like the Kens doing a fight, but they're using like
hilarious,
plunger tipped arrows and stuff like that. Like it's really just funny. Like there's a lot of really funny moments, and I think any of the more adult stuff is really going to fly over a kid's head. I'm alarmed that this got PG-13. I guess just because of the moments of like Barbie getting her butt smacked and like punching the one person in the face
Yeah, I'm not really sure why it did either. I think there might be
and
one.
whatever.
Is there one F bomb in it or no?
But it got bleeped out.
Oh, it
It's not
did.
even in the movie. It gets bleeped, but I
Yeah, I
mean it's
wonder
in there.
why
Like
it
you know
did
what?
too, actually. But yeah.
Yeah, you know what she says, but yeah, they bleep it out. And like I mean, I think so. I told her to go. I told her
Yeah.
to take her. Especially for little girls, like it's definitely a film for mothers and daughters
Hmm.
and things like that. I think I think that as a mom, I think she'll get more out of it than even her daughter will. Her daughter's like going to be a little bit young for like all the more weighty adult themes that would come
Yeah.
at her. But yeah, I would think so.
I think so
I don't
too.
think there's anything in here that's really
I
objectionable.
think so too. Like I said, I fully intend to see it again with my 9-year-old son. So
Yeah,
I think it's fine. I'm actually, now that you mentioned, I'm sitting there going, why is it PG-13? I'm not really sure. I don't know if
yeah,
maybe the themes were why or what, but like you
yeah.
said, if there's
I
anything
wonder if
super
it was
deep,
like
it's like kids aren't really going to be focusing on that anyway, you know?
yeah, kids are going to be focusing on like the fun musical numbers and like the all the silly cartoonish effects and things like that.
Yeah, and seeing their Barbie dolls come to life, which is what happens in the
Yeah,
first act of the movie, which is great.
yeah. So like I honestly I think it would be fine.
All right, high recommend from the P's, 8.5 on Barbie. Before we wrap up, we are going to go over and read the comments section, Nick. Each of us pick a question that was thrown out at us to answer that is related to Barbie in some way or tangentially or whatever. I've got one, but I think I went first last week. Do you have one that you want to answer over there from the fans?
So I guess the question I'm going to go with for this week then is going to be Tony Dobish. You know him, you love him. I know him, I love him. Tony, you're an amazing dude. And I know he's quoting the movie here,
Hmm.
but when I looked at the list of questions, this was really the one that jumped out at me. G, do you guys ever think about
Same
dying?
question I picked. So I got to do a second one, but go ahead.
You'll have to do a second one, but I mean, I honest to God, like, yeah, Tony, yeah, all the time, like, especially like as a 43-year-old dad, like the amount of existential dread I'm filled with, not just for myself but for my children, literally all the time of like thinking about like the mark that I've left on the world. Like, have I made enough of a good difference in the world and people's lives? Have I made people's lives better? All those kinds of things. Like, yeah, I think about it literally not like in a am I afraid of dying kind of sense, but in a am I very aware of my mortality and like I've got less time on the clock than I did say a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and I still have so much left to achieve and all those kinds of
Yeah.
things, and that just kind of creates this existential pressure and weight that gets heavier every single day. Yes, yeah, that got way deeper than I wanted it to, but
Well,
yes,
no, it's interesting because I that was going to be my pick too, and I was going to tell Tony also yes, but more recently, in the last like couple years, and obviously I'm
ever since you met Dan.
ever since I met Dan, I think about dying every day. But you know what I mean. You get older, you have kids, you want to provide for them. Like I've been doing shit with my wife that I would have never thought about doing, like setting up wills and like all this different shit that
Yeah, yep.
before a couple years ago, I just frankly didn't really care about. So,
Mm-hmm.
and health and stuff, you just kind of start thinking like, it could happen. I could retire, but maybe I'll die before I retire. Like, you don't really, I kind of like what you said. I wouldn't say I'm scared of it. I don't necessarily have a fear of it, but I have been thinking about it a lot more than I did, say, a couple years ago. And I was going to tell Tony that. My
Yeah.
question. So this week I'm going to go a little lighter with my question. All right. And I'm going to throw it to Jason Nerdravert, patron extraordinaire. And he asked a few, but the one I want to kind of hone in on is he says, what do you want to see Greta Gerwig tackle next? Now we know she's going to be doing the Chronicles of Narnia. She's already been attached to that. But I'm assuming he means beyond that. So what do you think I'm going to say, Nicholas?
Batman.
That would actually be amazing. Horror. Let's get a Greta Gerwig directed horror film. No fucking question. That would rule the world. She was in House of the Devil, which was a horror movie that I absolutely love, directed by Ty West. But let's get her behind the camera in the director's chair doing this really kind of vintage, gritty horror movie with a lot of like characters that we can connect to. and that we care about, and then they get killed or like whatever. Or like, I don't know. I feel like it's gonna happen. I mean, what do we got? We got the like romantic kind of. I guess you would call this a romantic comedy, Barbie. I don't existential. It's
No.
definitely comedy. It's a dramedy, I guess. I don't know.
Musical
Yeah,
dramedy-ish.
you
Something.
can't really. And then you got Little
There's a lot of
Women.
there's a lot of genre pegs this fits
I
into.
know. Lady Bird, which was kind of a coming of age film. So I mean, come on, let's get her a horror movie. That's my answer. You wouldn't be into that? You're telling me you wouldn't line up to see a Greta Gerwig horror movie? Let's be honest.
I'd line up to see a Greta Gerwig movie,
Yes. Your
period.
dad, I remember
But
right to
why
it.
does it have to be in a subgenre that's just not good?
Well, he just said, "What do I want to see her tackle next?" And that's all I'm saying. So there you go.
I already told you guys. Like he admitted it to me weeks ago. He's not a horror guy anymore. Doesn't like him.
Never
Hates
said
him.
it. Never
Hates
said
him.
it. All right. Thank you guys so much for the feedback this week. We appreciate it as always.
Who even is Mia Goth? He always says to me. He's like, I don't even think about her anymore.
God, thanks for making me think about her. It's been a couple hours. Thank you guys for the comment section this week. Nicholas, it's always a joy to get together with you and discuss things. And obviously, I really love Barbie as you did yourself. So great to discuss it with you, buddy. It was a good time. Next week,
Man,
go ahead.
Speaking of existential dread, yeah, next week we're talking about Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, which I just saw this afternoon,
Yes.
and I have thoughts. I have many, many thoughts. Can't wait to talk about it.
I don't want to say anything on the episode, but I saw it a few nights ago as well. And I'll just say I'm really excited to discuss that film. I was texting with a friend of mine earlier who has also seen it. And he's like, "What do you think?" I'm trying to find your episode. He thought we did it, this week or whatever. And I'm like, "Well, we're not doing it for another week. We're doing Barbie." And I'm like, "I can't believe I got to wait a week to talk about this." So I'm not putting my review on
It's gonna be
Letterboxd.
tough.
I haven't put my rating on Letterboxd. I'm trying to keep, aside from just, that I liked it, I'm not really saying anything else. So
This is where Gerald thinks I like follow him on social media or pay attention
I
to anything
know.
he does.
I should have known better. I should have
He
known
probably
better.
could have posted it everywhere, and I would have been like, "What?
Hey.
You posted it somewhere?"
Hey,
Huh?
Danny Boy came with me to that screening, and we have like 20,000 views on our little reaction video in IMAX.
I know. I saw that.
But you weren't one of them, so that's fine.
Someday, no, because I don't.
I don't want you to.
I don't watch out of the theater.
I don't want you to anyway, so it's perfect.
I don't watch them.
Good. Please don't watch them.
I just don't.
All right. Go play with Barbies, man. I love you. I'll see you. We'll drop some bombs on these people next week. We'll talk about Oppenheimer.